Well, Black Wolf, thank you for the bits, and the new total to help get me out to California has been updated. I very much appreciate that. You know, and not just for the bits or donations if you sponsor minis. You know, the followers, the subscribers, if you lurk, if you comment, all of it is still activity. And I don't want to seem like I'm spoiled because, I'm not getting 75 viewers. That's not the case. That is a goal that I would love to hit. And so I'm trying to seek engagement in order for us to grow to that number to get the consistency for Twitch Senpai to notice us. And so all of this accumulates and counts. If you play with a group of D&D folks, bring them aboard on the channel if you think that they'd like this kind of a thing too. GM Vault, hola nerds. I find it's fairly easy to make lackluster characters. If a character is substantially suboptimal, the DM and other players will lose interest, and so will the player. You want all three pillars of exploration, roleplay, and combat to work at least decently well. I agree with the concept, Bombard. Often it can be difficult to balance that on a session-by-session or even adventure-by-adventure or campaign-by-campaign basis. But I think for the most part, 5th edition has made it easier to have, you know, your character may be on a wobbly stool, but you should almost always have all three legs with every character. Like, you kind of have to go out of your way to build a bad character that can't even do that. I wish I could be here more due to scheduling and time zones. You go live when I'm already sleeping, and I've worked every day this month with no days off. Oh, oof. But I have all weekend off, so I'm tired. No, Nadpoo, I don't want you... don't feel like any of you have to give excuses or reasons or apologize. You all have your lives to live. I want you to be happy. That's spending time with friends or family. That's just going for a walk. That's, you know, working, paying your bills, saving up for, you know... saving up for a Nintendo Switch, or if you're saving up to buy a car or whatever, you know, if you're going to night classes and also therefore you're paying student loan bills or whatever. If that is improving you as a human being, that makes me happy, and you don't have to be here for that because you are being a better you, which is honestly the entire point of running a workshop. Because we all want to better ourselves, share stories, learn, advance. And if you're doing that, even if it's not through D&D, you're doing exactly what you need to do, and that makes me happy. I just want a DM Senpai to notice me, and not on Tuesday or Thursday nights. One Crit Wonder says, speaking of excuses, I'm going to leave now, and my excuse is that Maddie's conversation always distracts me from getting game prep done. So I'm going to go build some Eberron things in Roll20, and y'all should hit me up if you want to play sometime. All right, everyone, you heard this. So through Discord or through Twitch, One Crit Wonder has offered the opportunity for you to play in an Eberron one-shot. I prep during a stream, but it's slower. Well, I guess I'm a happy distraction then. I work on game prep when Maddie isn't on. Oh, well, thank you. I guess for, you know, like, I want to pay attention kind of a thing. Black Wolf says, not that I know how you want to portray your stream, but your titles lack a certain clickbaity nature. The easiest way would be to advertise the fact that you have minis for sale. Maybe with a command that you include your titles. But, that's one way to get more viewers. The miniatures, I do not expressly want to advertise, Black Wolf. And for the fact that for clickbait will get follows, or clickbait will get eyeballs. Clickbait will not get the type of community or viewership that I hope to grow. And I understand your comment was made, you know, as a polite suggestion, things that you might have, you know, experienced before, or things that would, you know, in your reasoning would attract eyeballs. And I have no reason to think that, you know, I could come up with some very fancy clickbait stuff or be like minis for sale. But if that's the title of the show and that's people's first experience, then that means that they look at me as a salesman and not as a storyteller. And that they come here for money and they don't come here for interaction. If that makes sense. It took a while to even bring the miniatures on board, because as soon as money is introduced into a social setting, that can have a very big impact on the dynamic of the community and the relationship between the store owner or the broadcaster and the viewer or the customer. And I've had years to try and find this balance in my own store. And so when I did bring the miniatures aboard, I thought it was done in a way that it added to the community and didn't take away from it. Yeah, clickbait gets 0 engagement. If you're consistently working on one world and letting the viewers make characters in it, that would be a great way to gain viewers. But I know you enjoy workshop streams, as do I. Rycon, that is going to be the point of this sailing campaign. But the sailing campaign, I need to work out the logistics and find some help to administer it. But I do agree with you, Rycon. You're not a salesman or a storyteller. You're our little cuddly bear who talks a lot. Yay! Warmth and cuddles. I won't turn those down. It's still springtime. It can get kind of cold. Nadpoo, on the character topic, I'm playing an artificer and mechanist, a golem smith. I'm effective in combat because I have utility in my golem. My character is fairly interesting in roleplay and seems valued there, and my backstory and world interaction is interesting enough as well. So, when I'm in situations like I'm in now, where my golem is dead forever, I still have value to the group, even though I'm not very good in combat, till I make a new golem, which might not happen for a couple sessions. Speaking of help to admin it, I'm here. Yay! And yes, I need to figure out what I need, honestly. Before I send out the SOS. I wasn't thinking of it that way, but you're right. I just figured it would snag a viewer here and there, and people would stay because you're actually a captivating streamer. Not just for the minis. No, I didn't take it as an insult or anything, Black Wolf. That is the explanation, though, about why I don't do that currently. Because I want to make sure that I'm grooming the, for lack of a better term, the brand of the channel. And that if you come here, you clicked into this because it was an engaging workshop, or you're new and you know, you have questions and the title invites you to ask questions, that kind of a thing. All right, well, the gang is collecting here. We have a good amount of viewers, awesome conversation, really good energy. I love it. You all are amazing for this. So let's put that energy, let's channel that energy as a sorcerer would by taking a look at what does it mean to be a sorcerer in the Eberron setting, and from that, what is the sorcerer subclass that is being offered to us? Arcane anomalies. The application of practical magic is a form of science. Divine is a form of faith, but what origins allow someone to inherit the ability to cast a spell? Is it the spirits from the ground at your feet? Is it a matter of the strength of one's will? Or is there truly power in dragon's blood? This course presents an overview of the practical mechanics of sorcery and examines known sorceress origins. Tim Bessel, Professor of Arcane Theory. So here's our course, 1104, Arcane Anomalies. In a world where dragon-marked dynasties dominate the mystical economy, it's easy to imagine how sorcerers' bloodlines can fit into the world, but not every sorcerer has dragon's blood or some inherited power. What defines the sorcerer is the fact that their magic comes from within, that they must exert their will to coax the powers that lay dormant within them to manifest. This section explores different ways that this can be expressed within a story, from the traditional sorceress heir to a vessel of the morning, or the product of Vidalis mage breeding. The core idea of a sorcerer is that their magic comes from within, whether it's handed down through a mystical bloodline, the result of exposure to a manifest zone, or some other event. A sorcerer's talents are not a gift like a warlock's pact. Magic is truly an inherent part of the sorcerer. You know, on this channel, we often compare them to mutants, like X-Men. They just have powers. It's a part of them. It's in their DNA. And so that's one way you can take a look here. But let's continue. Magic is truly an inherent part of the sorcerer, and the only bargain one must make is with the sacrifices the magic requires to coax it out. The most obvious way to explore this story engine is to have a dramatic physical manifestation of this mystical power. If the sorcerer's power is hereditary, consider whether the supernatural traits are shared by other relatives or children of the sorcerer. If the line has been around for a sufficient amount of time, it could be recognized by the people of the region. This could make the fledgling sorcerer famous, infamous, or burdened with the expectation to live up to the deeds of the family line. Alright, so if we're going to gen up a character, this is something else we would add to the character for consideration. Let's roll a supernatural trait for a sample sorcerer. 1. Your skin is an unusual color or texture. Alternately, you have patterns on your skin. Abstract patterns similar to dragon marks, scars that resemble arcane symbols, or something even more remarkable. These patterns may glow when you invoke your powers. So now, stop and think about this. If you've ever played a sorcerer, you've had this concept in your mind, and you know what? Here, in the player's handbook, you know, over the course of these 3 little sections, this gives you a generic presentation of a sorcerer. This is helping you to explore an Eberron sorcerer, though there's nothing in that prompt that says you can't take that out of Eberron and put it into a homebrew campaign, a Faerun campaign. I'm back from a long hiatus. How have you been? Forsaken, it is awesome to see you again. Welcome back from your hiatus. I hope that you are well, and thank you for finding us again. It's great. More people have been, you know, coming back because it's been a while. You know, maybe, you know, with the change of the seasons, you know, work patterns, all this other stuff. We've been getting a lot of folks. It's been a little bit, so it's awesome to see you back, Forsaken. In Eberron, the Bene Gesserit would fit well, and you could have breeding programs from a house. I'm not sure what that's referring to. Is it a noble house? It's just not popping in the front of my brain. Though, speaking of things like lore, in fact, if that's a name that'll pop up, maybe we'll see it. I would urge you, get this PDF and read the lore for yourself. There's so many awesome prompts, 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 for you to think about your character within Eberron, because the setting is important to these subclasses. And the setting and the culture could even be balancing forces with these subclasses. If nothing else, too, this could lend you inspiration for your own homebrew world. But I'm not going to go through all of the fluff. I might touch on some things here if there's some good points or questions. Because consistently, this supplement has made you question the nature of being whatever class that is. And I enjoy that challenge and those thoughts. Oh, you know what? Shame on me for not knowing that. You know, I think I've had that book on my Audible wish list for a while, so I could listen to it while I go around doing errands and other stuff. I've been stressed from handling some stuff at work because there's some favoritism going on, and I've been gathering people together to address this. Ah, well, I'm glad you're doing it tactfully, and I do hope that through, you know, human resources or through, you know, Better Business Bureau or through some other kind of advocacy group or a legal group that you are able to address these workplace complaints, Forsaken. As someone who has his undergrad and has his EMBA, that kind of thing is it's stressed. Like, there should not be a manager who holds those degrees that kind of training or consideration hasn't been presented to him. You know, it's not an excuse. So I hope that you're able to step up and take care of that, Forsaken. You know, being a manager, a supervisor, it's not just a pay raise. It is a sense of responsibility. And it is also an unfortunate pinch for many. And it's a real test of your decision-making skills. Because you may have other managers or executives above you who want a certain result. Whether that is an ethical, I mean, hopefully it's legal, and hopefully it's ethical. And sometimes you'll find a legal but unethical result. And then how do you administrate that when you have the people that are, you know, lower on the totem pole than you, you know, over which you hold influence and sway in the supervisory, you know, sort of command, and meeting that, you know, and that's not even if the decisions are coming from an unethical supervisor, him or herself. We're talking with the vice president of the company on Monday. All right, Forsaken. Management is easy. Managing people is hard as hell. Oh, so, like, yeah, I mean, if you're managing paperwork, if you're, you know, if you're managing, you know, I guess tasks, I can see where that is easier. People, it can be a lot more difficult, and it does require a certain consideration that a degree. I was talking about degrees. A degree can't give that to you. Eventually, I'd like to go for a doctorate, by the way. You know, maybe in 5 years or so. I don't know. We'll see. In a time capsule, if this is recorded, you know, and you're watching this 5 years from now, am I in a doctorate class? You know, am I following through on this? But I have my master's, and I want to go higher. But having a degree is nice, and it helps you learn about the world and resources around you, and can teach you some very effective techniques, you know, best practices and such. But when you're on the shop floor, or the equivalent, that's a whole other set of experience that a textbook can't give you. Setting up a workflow for multiple departments, no problem. Being a direct supervisor can be a struggle. Klepto knows. Are you talking from experience, Klepto? I found when I managed people, it was more about my temperament and ability to listen that made me effective. Ding. Daily? Yes. There is... It's sometimes called like the Toyota management method, but there's a lot of ways that are better at working with others if you are a manager over people rather than a manager over data or tasks. Or if you're a manager over spells, like a sorcerer. My headphones apparently require a charge. These poor doodads, they put in a lot of work. Plus, I kind of, they're a 7.1, which, by the way, I was a skeptic when I got these headphones. I'm like, 7.1 surround sound in a headphone? Like, I don't know. Are you just saying that there's like a couple like, mini speakers in there and that counts, right? But when I run the tests, like the surround sound tests in these things, it is amazing that you are getting 7.1 sound. Like, if they had a rumble pack, it would probably make the bass a little bit better. But if that's my only qualm, that, you know, I'm not getting, I'm not shuddering my teeth out because of my headphones, then there you go. I'm a contracted driver, and one driver who has been there is to hand out work evenly, but she has gone and hired family and is using only them to drive and oh no. Ooh, yeah, if that's obvious nepotism, Forsaken. No. Forsaken, this is all a part of D&D. We're learning, right? We're talking, we're learning, we're sharing experiences. That sort of nepotism is very dangerous for a company. And if you haven't consulted a lawyer, you know, be careful if you're going to even give a veiled threat. But you could do so tactfully and say, you know, I don't know what the laws state for, you know, things like nepotism or, you know, obvious signs of this. But I imagine it wouldn't be difficult to pursue this in a legal channel, aside from sitting down with you. You know, we're gracious. You've taken the time out of your day to hear our grievances and to see our presented evidence. And honestly, I'd hate for this to get legal as well. But you know what? I have bills to pay. I have a family to support. You know, I have pets that, you know, require me. I have a house payment. And we can't tolerate this. So, yeah, kind of like what we were talking about with Nadpoo earlier. I know you weren't around for it. But be tactful. And remember that the definition for tact is being able to tell someone to go to hell and they ask you for directions. Klepto, I've been in the military, owned several businesses, and worked in more. I've run the Oh, wow, Klepto, that's really cool. I'm sure you have a lot of stories to tell. And you know what? And that makes a lot of sense, right? If you're trying to urge people to come out of their shells and roleplay, why that kind of go-get-em attitude at the tabletop could be intimidating for some, even if you're the nicest person ever. Sorry to come in here. Oh, no, yeah, we already addressed that for a second. You're fine. Flat Hat. I blame Toyota for introducing lean practices into the minds of weak managers all over. Well, yeah, so, I mean, lean management has a lot of benefits to it, Flat Hat. But as you're saying, if it's the qualifier for a weak manager who just relies on that, and instead of getting the concept of lean management or Genshiken Butsu, or that kind of a technique, doesn't understand what it means and only goes by the numbers, or if they treat it as a black box of do this and you should have a guaranteed result on the other end, I totally get that doubt that you have, Flat Hat. This topic works for DMs as well, Forsaken. This is good stuff for running games with a group, and yeah, daily, 100%, 100%. I'm getting all fired up to do a Dune 5e campaign with Mentals, Witches, and Battle Masters. Oh, Bombard. Well, I'm sure if you need players, you'll be able to find them quickly in this community, or any others that you travel through. I do drive for a Toyota, a Dodge, and a Hyundai dealership. Oh, all right then. So there we go then. If that's the case, you know, if I talk to you and accidentally a certain Toyota is dropped off in front of the store, like, you know, I won't tell anyone. Shh, just between you and me. I might be in the market for a new car at some point in time. By the way, I hope you understand the irony of nepotism is bad. Hey, do me a favor, would you? I won't tell anyone. Forsaken says, I don't care. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, they have nice cars. I currently drive one. Oh, gosh. This is Dungeons and Dragons, everyone. For any of you out there watching, yes, we do have D&D content open, and as Daly said, this is good DM training, but all this table talk, and, you know, this is a part of D&D also. So there's some good thoughts here, by the way. I'm talking about suddenly sorcerers are like the middle managers of magic. They're like, oh, I got this magic and it's running rampant, or, you know, my blood expects me to meet certain metrics. And here I am, I'm stressing out. I'm in the middle of combat. I got to throw a fireball and all these people are in the way. Jeez, I got to carve out exceptions for them. No, Forsaken, no problem. This is actually amusing now. I'm just imagining this this like tired, browbeaten middle manager sorcerer who just has the pressures like the executive is the magic flowing through their body. And then, the campaign is like everyone else that they have to get through, right? They have to meet certain metrics, and they just got to find the best way to get through the day by using whatever, like, manipulations possible to try and keep the bosses happy. Jeez. This... All right, so if some of you out there aren't laughing, I understand, but if you're in business, if you've owned a business, if you run a business, or if you've been in managerial positions in a business, I hope that you're chuckling alongside of me, where suddenly a sorcerer is an excellent example of, of management. Especially if you're a wild magic sorcerer. You're just like, oh, hey, I came into my office. It's a good day. We've met all our metrics. Roll on the random table, fireball. And suddenly, the office is just literally or metaphorically on fire. Because you just had to open that one file. It was like, it was just entitled, "We Need to Talk." It's like the second email of your morning and you're trying to sip coffee. Oh, jeez. Anyway, I'm sorry. Why am I geeking out over, like, the soul-crushing middle management aspect of business? English Mudkip. I would love a Toyota Sprinter Torino AE86, one of my favorite cars, but there's two others I want more. Unfortunately, English Mudkip, I didn't understand anything beyond Toyota. I'm not too car savvy, so you're going to have to break that one down for me. So anyway, the components of sorcery, this is talking about, it's supposed to be spontaneous thematically, but it often doesn't feel any different from a wizard casting the same spell. A fireball from a sorcerer still requires all the same components that a wizard would need to cast the same spell, guano and all. And while metamagic acts as a catalyst to a thematic caveat, it's far from consistent and requires a large investment from the sorcerer to invoke. So, how do you reconcile the idea of innate power without having to prepare the same balls of bat guano? One approach is to say that when a sorcerer casts a spell, it looks just like a wizard casting the same spell, that they use the same gestures and the same words of power. They just spontaneously know to speak whatever arcane language it requires instead of learning it. However, the idea of a small child running around the streets of a broken, grimy neighborhood, finding bat guano and gesturing in specific pattern while mouthing specific words, then defies the theme of sorceress magic. And so, you have the author's permission. In Eberron, the easiest approach is to nullify all but the most expensive or rare material components from the sorcerer's spell, indicating that the sorcerers themselves function as the material component, and still provide somatic and verbal. And you know what, from there too, you can have a, you can have an arcane focus instead. This is talking about the components, and not an arcane focus, but, that's not necessarily a bad idea. What I would say in this case, though, is if a spell requires a material component, be it a focus or a material component like bat guano, there should be the fear of losing that focus or that component and not being able to conduct your spell. There should be a concern. There should be, I don't know, because as the spells were developed, they're given a material component for a reason, as a check, a possible check on that spell. Now, as a DM, you might say, you know what, I honestly don't care, because I don't run campaigns where sorcerers and wizards are stripped of their material components. Then that's fine. Then the body could be one. But just realize that, if they're captured and thrown in jail, they're probably not gonna have their material component. They're probably not gonna have their arcane focus. And so jailing a sorcerer would mean like mega jail for jaywalking, because you can't take that risk in a culture where magic exists, or I don't know, you're injected with some sort of anti-magic serum and the like. So just culturally be aware of those consequences. It's the car from an anime. Oh, the car from Initial D. Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's what Google is for, but I'm also currently broadcasting Forsaken, so it's a little difficult. You don't like components? So it's up to you and your DM to discuss that. And the fact that this document is prompting you to have that discussion is A-okay in my book. It does make the spell thematically unique, gives the user a lot of creative ways to cast the spell. I agree, Coffee. I do agree. So it gets a lot into ways of looking at somatic components, material, verbal components. What are they beyond the small blurb that the player's handbook offers, or the tag on a spell? Again, I'm not going to read all of this because I want you to do so. You know, support the creators here and challenge yourself to ask the questions that they are asking in this document. This is giving a lot of different thematic approaches to sorcerers. Dragon bloodlines. How dragon-marked sorcerers exist. Because dragon marks are very much a thing in Eberron. And it's a part of the culture, the economy. They're not ubiquitous in the number of people who have it, but the power and influence and money that they wield is in this world. In a world of dragon-marked sorcerers. Is your sorcerer manufactured? Right? Are you the product of a breeding program? Are you a warforged that had it infused? Are you a member of this Delkir? Components are where the dad jokes in D&D live. How could you not love them? Can you give an example, Daly? Mordecai, depending on the spell, either uses his instrument or uses a component. He is more likely to use components if he takes a non-bard spell as a magical secret. I like that. And you know what? If you ever want to make that come alive, you know, when you say you're casting a spell, bring some flavor to it. You know, even if we're in a combat, Coffee, you're welcome to do so. And, you know, Klepto, I get your point. And again, that's why every game is different. Player to player, DM to DM, table to table, adventure to adventure, campaign to campaign. So it's good to be aware of options and then find, like, the best fit. Alright, so the subclass here is the Progenitor Spark. Some sorcerer's power flows from the primordial cosmic beings who created the multiverse. And in the Eberron setting, these three progenitor dragons are Eberron, Kyber, and Cerberus. While the blood of dragons flows in your veins, you don't have scales or manifest wings, but you hold a tiny piece of a spark that can shape reality instead. On the surface, your spells allow you to fling fire, conjure illusions, and other common magic others might acquire. But you also have the power to create life, drawing dust and dirt together to form the living. The Progenitor Eberron is seen, I guess that should be Progenitor Eberron Sorcerer? Or instead of Eberron, it should be the Progenitor Sorcerer. Anyway, is seen as the source of all natural life. Oh, okay, got it. The Progenitor, as in that is what it is. Eberron is the dragon. The Progenitor, Eberron, the dragon, is seen as the source of all natural life and the defender of all that the three created. Kyber sought dominion over the aberrations and the fiends she created, while Cerberus produced the Celestials in all their beauty and splendor. We're getting lore even in this. You might feel a connection to one of the three, or you might be purely interested in the potential of creation, unburdened by the concepts of good or evil. And so here are our features. At first level, you gain proficiency in the Arcana and Nature skills if you don't already have it. Your proficiency bonus is doubled for any ability check you make that uses either of those proficiencies. Oh, I like that flavor, Coffee. I like that flavor of coffee. Oh, yeah, gotcha, yeah. A lot of the material components can be based off of phrases or history. For example, if any of you know why, I think it's the Lightning Bolt spell. Why does Lightning Bolt have the component of a small piece of amber and a cloth. Any of you know out there? Why were those specifically chosen to be the material components for Lightning Bolt? Bingo! TJ knows. Look at the origin of the concept of static electricity and how it was discovered and how it was demonstrated back in ancient Greece. Ah, well, we'll see if we can cross that bridge, Coffee. I'm glad that you're thinking about that, because hold out hope. You don't know what will happen, right? Alright, Shape of Creation. Starting at first level, you can spend 1 hour in common materials from nature to shape and animate a mindless, featureless automaton you fill with the very essence of creation that uses the commoner statistics. Your creation can perform simple tasks at your command that a human servant could do, such as fetch things, clean, mend or fold clothes, serve food, stand guard, or even make an unarmed attack against a creature or objet. Its damage die is a d4 and it deals magical force damage. Once you give the command, the automaton performs the task to the best of its ability until it completes the task, then waits for your next command. Your creation ceases to exist if it drops to 0 hit points after 24 hours, unless you repeat the 1 hour process to refill its essence, or when you use your action to reclaim its essence, returning to the wellspring from which it came. You can have one such creation at a time. When you reach 2nd level in this class, each time you shape your automaton, you can spend any number of sorcery points up to your proficiency bonus to increase its statistics. For each sorcery point you spend, its hit point maximum increases by 5, and its AC and ability scores increase by 1. Your creation's damage die increases by 1 type when you spend 2 sorcery points. For a d6, 4 for 8, or 6 for 10. For example, if you spend 3 sorcery points when you create your automaton, its AC and all of its ability scores are 13. Its hit point maximum increases by 15 to a total of 19, and its damage die is a d6. Pretty cool. It's a lot better than an unseen servant in some ways. Yeah, past Sesame, yeah. Although I also like the wordplay where instead of open sesame, it's open says me. Yes, bat guano and sulfur are pretty flammable. Suddenly I'm reminded of Ace Ventura. Shakaka. At 6th level, whenever you cast a spell of 1st level or higher that has a casting time of 1 action, you and friendly creatures within 10 feet of you have advantage on all saving throws and resistance to all damage until the start of your next turn. That's pretty good. A little bit of like a bit of a paladin splash there. And I don't think that's necessarily 6th level. And all friendly creatures within 10 feet of you have advantage on all saving throws. Whew. Man, a sorcerer and a paladin roll up. And you get the bonus to the rolls and advantage. And resistance to all damage also until the start of your next turn. Ooh. That could be really powerful. Resistance to all damage. And advantage on all saving throws. So it would force the party to travel close together. And you say, aha, so it's perfect fireball. It's perfect fireball fodder. But then if you have advantage on saving throws, and especially if there's a paladin in the group, that's That's pretty good. Even it's until the start of your next turn. Yeah, but still. That seems pretty powerful. And it makes it easily splashable. In fact, going Sorcerer, if you go Sorcerer, Sorcerer Paladin, because Paladins cast off Charisma, you could be this central bulwark. In that case, I wonder if it shouldn't have the tag when you cast a Sorcerer spell of first level or higher. Otherwise, if you multi-class and, I don't know, you cast Bless or something for even more ridiculous manipulation of rolls. I don't know. What do you all think about that? Joe's asking if someone out there can explain what Persistent Rage at level 15 does. At level 14 for this Sorcerer subclass, you get a feature called Thirst for Magic. At 14th level, you can will yourself the knowledge of a spell temporarily. As a bonus action, you can spend a number of sorcery points equal to the spell's level plus 1 to learn a spell from any spell list for the next hour. 1 sorcery point if the spell's a cantrip. The spell must be a level which you can cast, and it must be of 5th level or lower. It must be a level which you can cast. Oh, so, okay, a level for which you can cast. And it must be a 5th level or lower within there. 14th level. I don't think that's terrible. I mean, you only have so many spell slots. And whatever this other spell is would be competing for it. It could make things interesting, though, if you... I don't know, maybe you take like a Smite spell as the Paladin mix. Or I guess not as a mix, because you could just take it. I don't know, Thirst for Magic seems pretty cool. Not Finger of Death, English Mudkip. And lastly, Gift of Progeny. At 18th level, you learn the Simulacrum spell. It counts as a sorcerer spell for you, doesn't count against the number of spells you know, and can't benefit from your metamagic. Also, you can spend 10 sorcery points to ignore its material components and speed up casting the spell, which you can complete in 8 hours instead of 12. When you do, your Simulacrum has no sorcery points, and the number of spell slots it can use is equal to the number shown on the Sorcerer spellcasting table, equal to half of your Sorcerer level. You can only have 1 Simulacrum at a time, and if you create another, the oldest crumbles into dust. Let me familiarize, or refamiliarize myself with Simulacrum here in 5th Ed. Whoops. Seventh level illusion. Oh, that's right. You make us. Do you want to build a snowman? Yeah. You shape an illusory duplicate of one beast or humanoid that is within range for the entire casting time of the spell. The duplicate is a creature, partially real and formed from ice or snow, and it can take actions and otherwise be affected as a normal creature. It appears to be the same as the original, but it has half the creature's hit point maximum and is formed without any equipment. Otherwise, the illusion uses all the statistics of the creature it duplicates. Friendly to you? Yeah. In fact, I had a player do this in a previous campaign. because he was an important political leader, but he had to go off on an adventure. So he created a simulacrum to take his place. And I said, it's perfect in every way except your simulacrum just constantly sweats. It's just like sweating all, so he's always dabbing sweat off its brow. And it was a lot of fun. And the fact you can make a simulacrum for free, I mean, you're epic level by 18. I don't think I have a problem with that. It definitely fits within the 7th level spell. So aside from the fact that, again, we're dealing with having a commoner follow you around, and you might also have eventually a simulacrum. You know, are we playing the original Diablo 2 Lagromancer, where we just fill up with so many summons and other things that we get bogged down? I don't have a problem with that as an 18th level manifestation. It's thematic. I don't think it's broken. It could just slow the game down depending on the acuity of the player piloting that character. Alright, let's check out Warlock. The basic principles of Thalanian law. Whether you're negotiating with an awakened oak or asking a pixie to mend your old shoes, understanding the traditions of the Fae is the key to success. Taking this course now will help you avoid curses in the future. So, Professor of Otherworldly Anthropology. There's no such thing as a typical warlock. If it was easy to make a pact, everyone would do it. Some warlocks might have gained power through sheer luck, just happening to be in the right place at the right time, when the moons and planes aligned over a particular manifest zone, allowing a deal to be struck with an extraplanar being, while other warlocks may have earned their pact through research and effort, learning long-forgotten rituals to conjure and negotiate with a patron. A warlock could be a member of a bloodline with ancestral ties to a fiend, or they might have claimed an artifact in a forgotten ruin. So that's probably going out to Zendrick. It's up to the player and Dungeon Master to decide how the pact was made, but always remember that every warlock is remarkable. This sort of arcane power doesn't come easily, and every warlock should have a story. It's going to go through how you can reflavor the patrons in the Eberron campaign setting if you want to play in it. So a lot of fluff, good things to think about. And again, this could be a different take. If you think of the Archfey as what is presented in the player's handbook. In fact, there we go. You can, but this might challenge that. Have you ask questions, reconceptualize things. So all of this, right? The Archfey, the Celestial, the Fiend, the Hexblade, the Great Old One. Warlocks without patrons. Have you ever thought of that before? The idea of the patron is part of the inherent story of the Warlock class, but just as you can play a barbarian who's not a savage, there's nothing wrong with playing a warlock with no patron. Consider the following ideas. And again, I love this sort of challenge that this supplement offers. The Spy. Combined with the criminal or charlatan backgrounds, a warlock can make a highly effective spy. Your cantrips reflect your basic magical training. Your spell slots could be the equivalent of spy gadgets, or abilities that have been granted to you by your agency. These could be granted by mystical tattoos, or they could be actual gadgets, such as temporary magic items you assemble from simple components. As a spy, you may have a patron in the form of your agency. A list of possible organizations can be found in the Rogues section. Because if you remember from yesterday, all kinds of Thieves Guild and other criminal enterprises was listed. The Vessel. You didn't bargain for power, it was placed within you. It's impossible to permanently destroy an immortal entity in Eberron, and the only way to ensure it is subdued indefinitely is to bind it. Any sort of immortal might be bound within you. The spirit could be passive and dormant, but you can siphon its powers. Alternatively, it could be awake. You're in full control of your powers, but the entity bound within you whispers to you, pushing you to follow its agenda. As you gain experience, you learn how to channel more of the prisoner's power, but are you afraid that this might be weakening its bonds? This could also be an interesting path to combine with Pact of the Host, when the symbiont takes over. It's your prisoner temporarily transforming your body. Or a wand slinger. Wands in combat magic are becoming increasingly common on the battlefields of Eberron. You might never have been one for studying spellbooks, but you've learned a solid set of cantrips, and you're working your way up to being able to drop a fireball or two. As a wand slinger, you might be a former soldier looking to get some use from your wartime skills, or you could be a scoundrel, a criminal or charlatan with fast hands and a silver tongue, looking to make some easy gold. Despite the name, you don't have to have an arcane focus to cast spells. However, from a narrative standpoint, you prefer to use a wand, staff, or rod when you can. Tips on developing a patron. Right? Here's a way if we were to make an Eberron Warlock. Let's roll a d8 and find out what would be an aspect of this character to think about. 4. You hear your patron's voice in the rippling of water, the crackling of flames, or in the howling of the wind. And how often is this stuff around? This kind of touches on what Jade in the Tuesday game gets into. Your vessels. Where do you keep your warlock vessels? Says Roger Twy. By the way, Roger, I think I'm still hanging on to a miniature for you. Do you still want me to hang on to that? Like, do you want to build a collection, or do you want that sent out to you? Dice Funk played with the idea of a warlock given their powers by a corporation because the patrons because patrons and gods are dead. Exactly, Coffee. So that would be a corporate take on the spy agency theme. It's perfectly doable. It makes sense, right? You're someone who is given power or agency as an agent by someone that's a superior, in energy, in wealth, in influence, or whatever. All right, Roger. I'll do so then. I'll put that up for the April raffle then. Thank you for letting me know. All right, so here we go. This is the Pact of the Host, which is the subclass offered in Morgrave Miscellany for warlocks. Your patron binds another being in its service to you in a symbiotic relationship, protecting both investments by teaming the power of its independent gifts. The nature of the symbiont and the form that you take during symbiosis depends on the nature of your patron. A fiend might pair you with an ancient evil in need of a physical form, while a great old one might bestow an alien symbiont, protecting you in exchange for safe haven. Whenever you take damage that would reduce you below half your hit point maximum, you can use your reaction to relinquish control to the symbiont you host and enter a state of symbiosis with it. When you do, the symbiont envelops you and your possessions with its alien essence to enhance your capabilities and protect you from harm for the next minute. Ooh, that's most combats. While transformed, you can issue telepathic commands to the symbiont, which it tries to obey to the best of its abilities, and the following rules apply. Oh, so we're getting some artificial intelligence here. If you are affected by any condition when you transform, its effect is suspended for the duration of the transformation, and you have advantage on saving throws against spells and effects that grant additional conditions. Your AC becomes your charisma score, and you add your charisma modifier to your strength, dexterity, and constitution scores. You retain the benefit of any features from your class, race, or other source. Worn equipment merges with your new form and has no effect until you leave the form. You are blind, but the symbiont has tremor sense, which can be used to detect and pinpoint the origin of vibrations within 30 feet, provided that the source of the vibrations is in contact with the same ground or substance, but can't detect flying or incorporeal creatures. You can't cast spells or concentrate on them. Your Unarmed Strike deals 1d10 magical bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage. You choose each time you make the attack. If you're knocked unconscious, your transformation ends early, as the symbiont retreats inside you. you suffer 2 levels of exhaustion. If you reduce a creature to... By the way, so this is like a Druid Warlock prestige class, quote-unquote. If you reduce a creature to 0 hit points while the transformation persists, the symbiont frenzies and spends its next turn to consume the creature's life force and takes no other actions until it does. If it consumes the creature, nothing remains, including its equipment, and the duration of the transformation increases by 1 minute, and you regain a number of hit points equal to your Constitution modifier minimum 1. You can choose to prevent its frenzy at the beginning of each of these turns with a DC 10 Charisma check. Alright, I mean, so don't roll a... I don't know. Don't roll a 5 or lower? So, 25% chance, I suppose. On a success, the symbiont continues to obey your commands, or you can end the transformation early. On a failure, the symbiont spends its turn to consume the creature, and the DC increases by 5. You can fail each check only once each transformation, and lose control of the symbiont completely when none remain. If you lose control of the symbiont while it frenzies, it becomes hostile to all creatures and spends its turn pursuing and attacking the nearest creature to the best of its ability until the transformation ends. Whew! Alright. First blush. This is a subclass that requires communication and trust between the PC and the DM. Because we're talking about relinquishing control of your... relinquishing of control of this character. Or otherwise, the DM needs to know that this can happen and maybe account for it in some way. The player needs to know that this is a feature that you're going to use. Oh, thank you. The 8-bit. Home with pizza. You know, I thought about getting pizza tonight, Del. Thank you very much for that. And that means that I am ever so much closer to heading out to the new Republic of California. If you're playing this as a player, I would have on hand a stat sheet ready to go that already accounts for all of this in this transformation mode. Because there's a lot to consider and a lot to manage. And it will slow down a combat or other situation if you have to do a bunch of math, or if you say, oh, I forgot to add this, because there's a lot that needs to be added and a lot to be considered. So I would almost have like a dual box ready, where you have your, whatever, your human warlock, and then you have your, fiend symbiont warlock. And there you go. I had a coupon for a free Papa John's pizza. Seemed like a good compliment to Twitch. Oh, well, you tell me how to get a free Papa John's pizza. Jeez, I'd love that. Alright, Eldritch Invocations. At 2nd level, a Warlock gains the Eldritch Invocations feature. Here are new options for that feature. So there's Alien Speed, which Pact of the Host can get. While in Symbiosis, your Symbiont gains an increase to movement speed and jump distance equal to your Charisma modifier times 5. Ooh. Aquatic Adaptation. While in Symbiosis, you can breathe air and water and have a swimming speed equal to your walking speed. Chimeral Mind. You can relinquish control to your Symbiont regardless of your hit point total as a reaction whenever you take damage. You have advantage on ability checks to maintain control over the Symbiont. And the level of exhaustion you suffer when it retreats is reduced by 1. Dread the Darkness. While in Symbiosis, you have blind sight with a radius of 60 feet and are blind beyond that distance. Elevated Evolution. When you transform, your Symbiont grows wings and gains a fly speed of 30 feet. Precision Predator. Once per turn, when your Symbiont hits a creature with an attack, you can expend one of your hit die to deal extra damage of the same type equal to your charisma score. Second Skin. When you enter symbiosis, your symbiote gains temporary hit points equal to your warlock level. Venomous Spit. While in symbiosis, as an action, your symbiote can spray a stream of sticky bile, targeting one creature or object it can sense within 60 feet. The target takes 1d8 acid damage, and its speed is reduced by 10 feet until it succeeds on a dexterity saving throw against your spell save DC. This damage increases by 1d8 when you reach 5th level, so on and so forth. Violent Ends. Your symbiote transforms with a serrated, prehensile tail that it can use to make a special melee weapon attack as a bonus action. This attack has the finesse and reach properties. The damage die for this attack is a d4, and the attack deals slashing damage. So I'm trying to reconcile if I missed something, because each of the, well, alright, so yeah, you get your Patron and Pact magic. Oh, but then the boon is at 3rd level. Alright, so you still choose from the patrons that are there, but the boon is, instead of blade, book, or chain, you can manifest this host where you become, or can become, a bit of an avatar for your patron. I was looking at, like, so where's the patron spells? Well, it's because we're only talking about the pact and the boon you get from that, than the patron. So that was my fault. A Fiend Lock. Warlocks transform and roll out. I like that, Roger Twy. Carry out club, place 10 orders, pick them up yourself, and you get 1 large, 1 topping pizza free. Oh, I wasn't aware of such a thing existed. I have one that's kind of close by that, you know, it'd be worth it if I ordered pizza often-ish. I was saying boons? Bones? I don't think there's anything... There's nothing I think is broken about this. The concern would be, kind of as we've seen, because a lot of this Eberron content is more... You know, even if we look at the Artificer, a lot of these are more complex classes to run. There are more things to track, more things to consider. And so, if I would have a concern about Pact of the Host, it is that whoever plays this Warlock needs to be on their game and have this form ready to go, understands how it works, and and if the occasion calls for it, makes the transformation, switches the character sheets, and it's a seamless interaction so that we don't lose time at the table to try and account for all of the things that change. Delcorin is trying to build the perfect pizza homunculus. All right. I'm gonna get up. I gotta stretch, you know, do like this, walk around a little bit. I'm gonna get some water, and when we come back, let's tackle the wizard, find out what it has, and after we finish looking at this wizard school and subclass, we can begin talking about the races, or I guess in this case the cultures of Eberron, that are representative of, the different races, such as the Talenta halflings that ride dinosaurs. So here's a little halfling riding on a pterodactyl. So let's go back up here, take a little bit of a break, and come back and look at Wizards. Wizard.